funny how no one seems to be talking about it. I guess it's hard to see past a massive outburst in power such as this. But I noticed Jiren doing something not as obvious during the Dragon Ball Super episode 127 preview that is going to make a lot of people happy next weekend. When you look at this snippet, you can see why. This fixes one of the biggest problems most people have with the Dragon Ball Super series in general. How many times have you gotten through an episode wondering what happened to the power scaling? This question popped up for many of us just this week after watching Toppo create energies of destruction back to back, even though Beerus had just said the week before that he needed time to charge up to it. It was looking like he had no weaknesses after all, yet it only took about a quarter of the episode to push him off the stage. Don't get me wrong, Vegeta is a complete monster for doing this, but many of us couldn't help feeling let down. However, the preview for next week has turned my mood around. Seems that Jiren's main opponent next week won't even be Goku or Vegeta. The person he's mostly fighting is someone that not only has been gaining so much respect from the Dragon Ball Super community the past 2 weeks, but is also someone that shouldn't be able to handle this amount of power on his own. That means Jiren will finally push Android 17 to use his full capabilities, and it's about time. Android 17 has held one of the biggest power scaling issues during the Tournament of Power. Fights like this were not at all reminiscent of the power they had originally shown to us when Super Saiyan Blue was still the hottest form out there. Those were the days that when Goku powered up with the blue aura leaking out, we knew that fight was donezo. But here was Android 17, standing tall, pushing Goku's power off of him. This by itself was enough to prove that he would be one of the most important people to have on Universe 7's team. But as they ended their small battle smiling at each other, a shocking observation was made. Neither him nor Goku had been using all their power. So where's all that hidden potential been? We finally got a major spotlight on Android 17 when he defeated Aniraza. But the thing about that fight is that any of the fighters could have made this exact same attack. The solution to Aniraza's takedown wasn't about brute strength. It was about figuring out the right spot to hit him. Therefore, it was more Android 17's knowledge of animals than it was his powers that ended it. And that's why this gets me so hyped. Jiren has no animalistic attributes, which will force Android 17 to use his raw strength, a power they showed us that one time against Goku, and then pretty much have left it in the dark since then. This isn't the only thing next week's episode will have to offer though. Who else noticed that hole in the back of Jiren's uniform? Not only will we see Android 17 finally go to the limit of his strength, but we will actually see a weakness from Jiren. We have seen him get scratched. We've even seen him get hit a few times by now, but none of these things actually did anything to him. That one tiny piece of his uniform missing can give us a small piece of hope for the Universe 7 fighters to actually find a way to win this thing, because not a single attack has ripped through that uniform as of yet. This means that whatever is gonna hit him has a lot more force than anything we've seen so far. But who do you think is making such a forceful move against Jiren? I have a sneaky idea as to who it might be, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. It's easy to get hyped by something like this and ignore the rest of the preview, which proves that just because they can rip Jiren's uniform doesn't mean this is gonna be easy. The first part of the preview shows Jiren making a familiar move. We saw him jumping rocks like this before. Just a few episodes ago, Goku had tricked Jiren good. The destructive disc he had sent flying earlier now swung around like a boomerang, sending Jiren falling off the stage. The only way for Jiren to get back up was to jump up on the rocks that were also falling around him, which makes me think, is Jiren gonna get pushed off the stage again? Looking at the condition the stage is currently in, these rocks he's bouncing off of could be the ones that are already floating around in the air. But I also wonder if the stage will fall apart even more, causing Jiren to have to find his way to a more stable part that's still connected. Either way it turns out, looks like he's making his way to Android 17, who's making the barriers we're all so excited to see. But what we see next isn't just Jiren breaking through one of Android 17's barriers, easily shattering it into pieces. It's also breaking through our hopes that come from seeing such an awesome counterattack, shattering our excitement to have Android 17's power scaling issues repaired. This saddening move alone is showing us the enormous gap in power between Toppo and Jiren, aka the gap between Jiren and a god of destruction. In Dragon Ball Super episode 125, Android 17 threw up his barrier as Toppo started attacking him, but he was forced to move to a different spot quickly after seeing his barrier starting to crack. If a man with a force a god of destruction holds was only starting to break through Android 17's tough barrier, then you can only imagine the immense difference in strength Jiren has as he completely ruins it in a mere second. In spite of how terrifying this is to see, the next snippet of the preview is the one showing us a hole in the back of Jiren's uniform, which brings us to who could have possibly done this to him. After all the effort we've seen Vegeta and Goku, the two agreeably strongest Universe 7 warriors, put into their attempts to take Jiren down, it's hard to imagine someone actually being able to pull something like this off. But there's a clue from 2 weeks ago that's been feeding my suspicions of who's behind such an attack. Toppo had yet to transform into a god of destruction at that point, but the power he already had was still enough to almost push Android 17 right off the tournament stage, when suddenly he started to pull back on his attack. Something had hit him in the back, leaving a tear in his uniform. It was a dirty, sneaky move that could have only been made by the evil Frieza. Leave it to him to be the only person who would have stooped so low as to attack a man literally behind his back while he's distracted fighting someone else. Sounds a lot like what'll have to go down for Jiren to end up with a hole in the back of his uniform, doesn't it? This gives us a solution to the confusion raving through everyone's mind after Dragon Ball Super episode 126 failed to show us Frieza as one of the final warriors. As we were just reminded of this week, Frieza loves to stay in the shadows, and this provided him the perfect opportunity to hide, which is exactly why he was missing from the ending of last week's episode. He wants to be completely forgotten about so that he can make a sneaky comeback at the most unexpected time possible. It's clearly given him a great advantage against many other opponents, and if this is truly his doing, then we see his trickery has worked for him yet again. But let's consider the clip that started this thought in the first place. Judging by the way Jiren is grabbing Android 17 by the face, I'd say he isn't very happy at the moment. And that's exactly what makes me question if this hole was created by Frieza or not. Why would Jiren be going at Android 17 so aggressively if Frieza was the one who finally found one of his weak spots? It is possible that his actions here are completely unrelated to being hit in the back, but remember all the excitement we all have to see the massive amount of power we already know Android 17 has. Could be that this was his doing, provoking Jiren to act in such a way. In either case, Jiren is certainly about to give everyone a quick reminder of the fear he's produced throughout the Tournament of Power. It even appears that he's smiling in the clip while fighting Goku. Notice how Goku's still using Kaioken topped onto Super Saiyan Blue though. It's not even a question to anyone that Goku will return to Ultra Instinct Omen at some point in the next 4 minutes. What we do question, however, is when will it happen? Well, we know it's not coming back next week, but we do know he'll be forced to do it extremely soon. Why? Because something is gonna have to push Jiren to unleash this. Not only do we see the red aura we've already gotten used to, it's not even just 2 other fiery auras that look unlike anything we've ever seen, but there is another pink aura engulfing the other 3. This is unreal. It is possible that this is a clip from the very beginning of Dragon Ball Super episode 127. After all, we just saw Jiren powering up at the end of this week's episode, so this could be him showing the last Universe 7 warriors exactly what they're getting themselves into. However, you can understand why I say Goku will be forced to awaken Ultra Instinct very, very soon. Another reason I see it coming though is the next clip of the preview, which is Vegeta and Goku fighting together again. But pay attention to Vegeta. We just witnessed him using his life energy to eliminate Toppo, and as Beerus put it, Vegeta is barely even able to stand at this point. Yet here, we see he's pushed himself all the way back into his still nameless new form. If Vegeta was able to push his limits to the max like this, then nothing stops me from expecting the same out of Goku. But what will happen in order for them to have to go this far? Is it it the simple fact Jiren showed off that terrifying power? Could be, but later in the preview, we see Goku and Vegeta lying helpless as Android 17 flashes by them, throwing up his tiny barrier in an attempt to protect them from the huge orange orb coming closer. There are two things important to notice from this snippet. The first answers the question of what will push Goku and Vegeta to their limits. You see that they are both in base form here. Judging by the way Android 17 jumps in to save them, I'd say they were knocked out of a higher form, which could be the cause for them to go past what they could before. The second important thing to notice is that the tiny barrier Android 17 has thrown up is actually pushing the huge orange orb back. So just in case that you were having doubts that we'll see his full power coming out next week, there's your proof. But we still can't ignore this. Jiren will do something terrible. This looks alarmingly similar to this and this. We all remember the results of those fights. Thankfully, we know there are 4 more episodes after this one, so we can be sure this can't be the end of our favorite warriors. But don't forget what we just saw last week either. We saw something very similar happen to Toppo as well, and we already know nothing detrimental happened to him. He was just eliminated. So I am fairly certain that this will be something survivable, but I wonder if I'm the only one who noticed the crazy similarity between Super Saiyan 3 and this.